Today we're going to be taking a look at this. It's the FalconEyes RX18TD Rolleiflex LED panel. FalconEyes RX18TD LED panel. What exactly is it? Well, quite simply, it's a flexible LED panel. It measures 61 centimeters by 46 centimeters. It's, as you can see, it's less than 1 centimeter thick, and it contains 504 individual LEDs. Now, it's a bi-colour panel, so the LED strips along here have alternate orange and white blue LEDs, and that enables the panel to produce colour temperatures all the way from 3000 Kelvin up to 5600 Kelvin. Okay, so how much does the RX18TD panel cost? It's around the £250 mark. So let's take a closer look at exactly what that money gets you. Now, obviously the main component is the flexible panel itself. As you can see, it's really flexible and bendy. It's got a sort of plastic cloth fabric back, and then there is actually a slight sort of diffusion mess over the front of the LEDs. And FalconEyes also claim that the panel is slightly waterproof. However, one thing that definitely isn't waterproof is the power supply unit, so you will still need to keep that safely contained within a waterproof bag or box. So speaking of this power supply, one of the reasons that the panel is so thin is obviously because this unit here, this is doing all the hard work and controlling all the power output and the colour. It's all done through this unit. So at the bottom of the panel here is a lead that comes out and goes on to this blue connection lead here, and it screws and locks into place, and then this in turn goes into the main power control unit. Now, this unit itself then has an XLR adapter which takes it into the AC mains unit, which then uses a figure of 8 lead to go into the main socket. Did you manage to keep track of all of that? Now, one of the most useful accessories that comes with it is actually this velcro strap on the back here, and it uses a simple V-lock system to just mount into place. Now, that's really handy as it does keep this rather bulky kind of package quite neat and tidy. There you'll notice I've mentioned V-lock, and you can of course use V-lock batteries to power this panel. So onto the power unit itself, and it's really quite straightforward. Just on the side here, we've got a plastic hanging loop so that the power supply can be hung from a lighting stand. Now, this is actually also useful to add a little bit of ballast to the stand and the light, because obviously this whole setup, it's really portable and obviously very lightweight. So a little bit of extra weight on the stand just to keep everything nice and stable, that's never going to be a bad thing. Also on the side here is a socket to screw in a radio antenna, and this allows you to use an optional wireless remote control so that you can control the power and the color temperature obviously remotely. Now, FalconEyes haven't supplied me with that, so I can't actually test that or talk about it, but I will again put the details in the description because it sounds like a pretty useful unit to have. So the power switch on the side here, it has 3 settings, so you can switch between main supply, turn it off, or run via battery power. And speaking of battery power, you can see how much charge the current battery has on this touchscreen display here. You can then also see the channel that's been used for the wireless, and then we've got the color temperature here and the power output levels. And on each of these, there's simple up and down controls so that you can change these outputs. So as I press the down button on the color temperature here, you'll notice that all of those orange LEDs turned on. So the panel is now using all 504 LEDs. They're all in use. Now, if I keep moving the color temperature down to its minimum 3000 setting, you'll have just seen that all of those blue white LEDs have turned off, and we're just left using those orange ones. Okay, so I've turned all of the house lights off. I've turned the LED panel towards me. Now I'm shooting this on the Panasonic GH4 with the 12 to 35mm 2.8 lens, and my exposure settings are ISO 200. I have got an aperture set at 5.6. The light color temperature is at 5600 Kelvin. So at the moment everything's off. Let's press the up button. That is at 2% power. That's at 1% power. This does actually move up in 1% increments on the front here, and you can either tap to go up. So now we are at 10% of its maximum power output, or if I hold it down, we can whiz all the way up to 100%, which we're at now. So this is the maximum power output, and I think it's pretty good for f5.6 ISO 200. I've got the shutter at 1/50th of a second for shooting video, and ISO 200. So you've got some flexibility there. You know, you can push the ISO up to 400. You can move the aperture down to sort of nearer 2.8. You know, if you're lucky enough to have a lens where you can shoot at 1.8 and you're shooting an interview or something like that where you don't need a huge depth of field, this light is going to be more than powerful enough. Now let's have a closer look at exactly how this light is mounted. At the back here you can see we've got this sprung X frame. It slots into the corners here and bends and flex, which makes it sprung, keeps that panel nice and tight. Now this attaches at the end using just a standard lighting spigot there, and it goes on to this supplied angle bracket. Now there was one annoying thing about the bracket, which you'll be able to see now. It's actually set to its maximum right angle setting, but you can't angle it down any further. To be able to do that, we're going to need to use a boom arm, or actually what I've done is used a second angled bracket to just add another degree of rotation on it. And I found that's a really simple way to get around the problem, particularly if you're using just a simple lighting stand in the kit and you don't want to be using a boom arm. So now we'll just remove this X frame and we can see just how flexible this panel is. And you can see it's completely flexible, and you can actually move the sides to narrow or even to widen the angle of light that you're moving around. Usefully on the back here, there's that kind of fluffy material that adheres really easily to velcro, and actually included in the kit is some velcro tape supplied, so you can stick that tape to a wall or to obviously even a ceiling and then just put the panel up. Now, being so lightweight, even a single strip of velcro is able to hold this panel to a wall, and if it does fall down, then because there's no power unit or anything, you're not going to do much damage to anything that this very lightweight panel is going to fall on, be it an object or a person. So let's talk about the quality of the light itself. One of the first things to point out is that these LEDs throw quite a lot of light out towards the side. If I turn the light up, let's turn it up to about 50%. Now you should see just on the wall at the background here, there is a line, and that is obviously where the shadow, if you like, from behind here, where the light's being created. So it does throw out quite a lot of light at the sides. Now there's a cloth grid that goes over this as an accessory, and that obviously narrows the beam and will make it a more directional light. So as I've already mentioned, in front of the LEDs themselves, there's a very slight diffusion, and it is only very slight. It takes the edge off, but to be honest, if you want it to be a little bit softer, more flattering for portrait lighting for people, you are gonna have to attach some extra diffusion. But again, that's really simple, because a simple sheet of diffusion material, a couple of pegs, top and bottom, and that's it, you're done. Now in terms of colour, I've tested the colour temperature at 3000 Kelvin, 4300 Kelvin, 5600 Kelvin at both the minimum and maximum outputs. This is a very non-scientific test. I used the Sony A7R in its standard picture style mode, and I photographed an X-Rite colour checker passport video. Now I've got the three colour temperatures across the top there, 3000, 4300 and 5600, and I've set the power of each of those to just 1%. Now as you can see here, things are a little bit out. 3000 is 3300, 4300 is 4500, and 5600 is actually 6100. And at 3000 and 4300, there's an ever so slight hint of green. Nothing really to be concerned about, but I've picked it up on the camera with this test. Now at 100%, things are a lot better. So you can see that 3000 is actually 3100, 4300 is nailed on 4300, and 5600 is 5700. Again, this isn't a scientific test using a spectrometer, but it's the best that I could work out how to test this. Now again, at 100%, there is no green or magenta at 3000 or 4300, but there's just an ever so slight hint at 100. It may be the way that the Sony camera is picking it up, but these are the results of my test, and this is what I have noted. I don't think there's really anything to be concerned about if you're using the lights nearer the 100%, but the colours do seem to be a little bit off if you're going to be using them at a kind of minimum power level. Actually, in the studio now, I'm shooting with two other lights that are measured at 5,600 Kelvin. This light's on 5,600 Kelvin. The Panasonic GH4 is at 5,600 Kelvin, and all the color temperatures seem to be matching each other really nicely. And that's about it for the FalconEyes RX18TD. It's a nicely made LED panel that's really flexible, both physically and in the number of different ways that you can use it. And it comes in at a really reasonable price when you compare it to some of those more well-known brands. If this is your first time watching Photo Gear News, we're doing review videos and first looks of all the latest camera and photography kit once or twice a week. So if you don't want to miss out, make sure you hit the subscribe button just here, and then down here is another video that YouTube is recommending you watch next. I'll see you next time.